if I didn't think that this was a serious article, I would have expected this from something like The Onion. What is better than an extremist religion? What is an authentic religion? And what does that even really mean? And this was this article was from The Desert, and it was written by Todd Walsh, and it's all about the president of the Latter-day Saints, having this presentation about, why there's such a bad perception about church, why, the history of different churches and, what they've done. And it's like, no. Those were bad churches. But it also came from the top. We've seen, child abuses getting covered up, all the way to the Vatican. So when you say, you need a better religion, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then we get this really interesting quote from Brian Grimes later on, who's president of Religion, Freedom, and Business Foundation, because those are things that should belong together. It is not religion itself that leads to violent persecution and conflict, but the level of social and government regulations on religion. Here in America, and again, we do have to kind of look at this from an American perspective, because unfortunately in this panel we don't have any international people. But here in America, there really isn't much of the way of any regulations on religion. Religious institutions, they don't have to pay taxes. Their nonprofit status doesn't get revoked when they decide to, endorse a certain candidate. Meanwhile, we have to dance on eggshells. And I get it. You don't want, money going to, say, a certain candidate and being like, no, this is the guy we're going to go with. No. Let them do their own thing, and we'll do our thing by spreading our message the way that we do. But it's so weird, where it's like, hey, if you're dealing with poisonous material, you don't say like, oh, hey, this is cyanide. It's really bad. So let's replace it with arsenic because it's not as bad. I don't get it. Am I missing something here, guys?
No. And I think, first of all, I have to comment here, Jason, your background there is very intimidating with those big eyes kind of saying, okay. But setting that aside,
the better to see you with, my dear.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. But we've probably all seen this idea that the separation of church and state is supposed to, quote unquote, protect religion from the state, not the other way around. But I think, as we saw in our first, in our first segment there, that, the mix goes both ways. And so there needs to be a separation there. But setting that aside, this Sister Sharon Eubank, that she was the one who was the primary interviewee in this article. She said she was rising up, right? She wants to call on media to balance their reporting. And this is a quote from her. I would call on the media to balance their reporting, to respect the roles that are uniquely played by religion and faith in society, and share stories of goodness and humanity and faith in God and cooperation. And I got to call bullshit on this, roles that were uniquely played by religion and faith in society, right? This comes up very often on, the call-in ACA shows where, they say, well, what about all this good stuff that religion does? And then the host will almost invariably say, name something that some good thing that can only come from religion. And it's almost universally met with crickets chirping, right? And so it's you know, the whole idea, first of all, she's working under the assumption that there are roles that are uniquely played, quote unquote, by religion. And so then if you buy that, if you buy into that, that there are benefits that can only be had by religion, now what do we do, right? And so it seems like that whenever we see religious groups arguing amongst themselves, setting aside the Schadenfreude or the you know the immature glee that we might seeing religion arguing amongst themselves, but it always seems like it's the more quote unquote authentic religions, or the more you know, I follow Jesus's teaching. I'm not a Christian or whatever. It seems like whenever those types of arguments happen, or disagreements or discussions happen, the side that is presenting themselves as the more appropriate, or the more authentic, or the more real religion is almost always the side that is kind of pulling away from these foundational doctrines. And so it seems to me like if they're always claiming that the better religion is really just less religion, then okay, let's follow that logic. If the better religion is the less religion, what's the best religion going to be? And I think we can all see where that goes. If less religion is better, then the best religion is
the none religion.
But it's frustrating. It's frustrating seeing, first of all, that moving forwarding the conversation as if we all assume that there are these wonderful things that can, and sure, many religious people and many religious groups do great things, do wonderful things. They help people. They help build up the world. They might support science. They might support good things, you know, things that we would all agree on. There's a lot of things that we can all agree on. But the hitch there is that, does it really need to be attached to the rest of it? You know, is this something that only religion can do? And like I said before, or at least what we've heard from callers into the shows, is that, I don't know, is there something that has to be tied to religion, or is there goods that can only come from religion? Anyway, that was kind of what stuck in my craw, I guess.
Yeah, August, what do you have to say on this?
So I actually audibly groaned, and at one point when she says faith is actually the answer, I actually yelled out, "No!" I got this article was hard to get through because, like Jason said at the very beginning, it almost seemed like this belonged in the Onion. Like there's no way someone could actually believe this nonsense that, oh, something's bad, so we should just make that a less bad version of the bad thing and then act like everything's cool. And I'm sitting here like, what about secular humanism? You know, the thing that literally everyone can follow, whether they believe in a higher power or not. It's the one, really, I can't think of anything else that could be so unifying of everyone of any different belief. I even feel like maybe a religious person could still follow most of the things that a secular humanist would follow, you know, treating people like you would want to be treated and considering what produces the best well-being for the most amount of people. I think that's just universally a good method to go by. I don't understand why we have to say that, okay, well, this imaginary thing was really bad, so let's pick a different imaginary thing, or we'll make the imaginary thing more real. I was just kind of scratching my head at that. Wow. So I also think that I know a bunch of other hosts I've heard say this before, that religion is kind of harmful, even if you're just considering the fact that religion places its entire worldview in the lens of what us atheists would argue is highly implausible, if not just downright wrong. And we can provide reasons for why, or at least reject the reasons that people give us for believing. So even if these religions are doing all this nice thing for the world, they are still basing their worldview off of something that it hasn't been proven to be true. And every attempt at at trying to explain its validity has been shot down using logic and, you know, whatever else. And secular humanism, it always comes on top. And I like what Scott said as well about, you know, there's nothing that religion has done that has benefited the world that an atheist or even just someone who didn't do it for the sake of religion couldn't do. So I don't it baffles me. It's wow.
Yeah, like you'll get people who say, "Oh, well, what about the charitable works?" And it's like, okay, well, if you feed 100 homeless people, but in order to feed that homeless person, you make them go through an hour-long sermon. That's not doing good. That is forwarding your own sense of what you think morality is. I would challenge any church that, you know, does anything like that. And I know there are churches that don't, but if your church, if you're watching this and your church has a sermon before they help somebody, or has a pamphlet that they have to get out, I would challenge you to do that same thing without the sermon, without the pamphlet, and see what happens, and see if it still makes you feel like everything is still, you know, you're still doing good. And then tell me if that was the religion or you just not being a prick.
And it's preying on vulnerable people as well. They say they do all this charity work, and then, like you said, they're handing out the pamphlets, or they're saying, come to our sermon. And then it gives that person a sense of community that they may not have had before. And it sucks them in when they're presumably at one of the lowest, if not the lowest points in their life. If they're, you know, homeless or hungry or anything of that nature, they're preying on the fact that these people may feel hopeless or helpless and they just don't know what to do with their life. And here's some nice person now telling them that there's somebody who loves them and the higher power and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I also think that in and of itself is pretty, can be argued that it's pretty immoral to sit there and prey on someone who is just wanting help. Why can't you do the same thing without trying to recruit them to your religion and your way of thinking? Just give them the food, just give them housing, or, you know, money to get them on their feet, or a job application, or whatever it may be. You don't have to sit there and say Jesus loves you whenever you do it. You know what I mean?
And that God gave you all these things. And it's like, no, there were people who gave you those things.
Well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't point out, and this is certainly true for any Christians or any other religious people that I know of, for that matter. When we say that, you know, there's kind of a bait and switch going on, or, you know, we're implying that, you know, you can have this meal with you if you do, and then we're say, you have to go to the sermon. I think it's worth mentioning that, you know, the people feel that they're doing that because they think that's the right thing to do. That, you know, they think that bringing somebody to God is going to help that person, and right. and so it's not. And you mentioned morality, and I think that definitely applies to many religious people. But I think we need to be careful not to paint all religious people with that brush. And
oh,
so,
absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And
sure.
I apologize if my previous wording made it seem as if I was painting every religious person who does charitable acts. I know that a good majority of them really think that they're saving someone for eternity and that they're really helping someone. I just want to make that clear, that, and I'm glad you brought that up, Scott, because I'm glad I could clarify that.
Right. Yeah. I didn't think that that's what you meant. But again, you know, we want to, you know, I think it bears mentioning and clarifying. But I think that underlines it, the point, and I don't necessarily speak for everyone here, but I'm sure that there's many people watching that would say that it's not so much religion that we're against, it's being irrational, right? It's having these unfounded beliefs. And Jason, you were mentioning that, you know, if you have these unfounded beliefs, then you know, that's the problem there, right? That's the core problem. Yeah, it's fine to do these wonderful things for other people, and to do it in the name of Jesus or Allah or whatever. But the baggage that comes with that is not so much the religion per se, but the fact that the religious beliefs are unfounded. And there's the damage. If you promote unfounded beliefs in one aspect, then you're kind of opening the door a little bit for, you know, for other things too. And so I think that's worth keeping in mind as we look at these types of things that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.